questions at the end of the presentation, but sometimes, certain questions are relevant as we go. So other than that, that's it for me in the Zoom logistics, I think. For anyone who just entered, again, this is being recorded. Amanis, all you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Let's see, first of all, to make sure everybody's on mute. I put there. And so, yes, my name is Amini Sanati. I am the NASW Region H Director. So thank you so much for joining us today. I also work at as a mental health clinical supervisor at Twin Towers Correctional Facility. And I've been there for the past decade, enjoy my work there. It's been very interesting with COVID. Now we're doing this, and I'm also UCLA alum 2010. So thank you for giving us this opportunity. We've had this talk a few other times in other region, but this is now our chance to offer it here. And luckily, with Zoom, people are tuning in from everywhere. So this is a fabulous deed that our courageous panel is doing for us tonight as we learn about something that is very hot, especially right now. So thank you. And Ms. Tercero, Hazel, if you would like to introduce yourself as the Assistant Regional Director.
Yes, a little more. Hi, Hazel Tercero. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work for the Los Angeles County Office of Education at Santa Monica High School. I am also a UCLA grad, 2013. Time flies. Let me see, this is my second year, or I've done one full year as Assistant Regional Director, and it's been a blast being able to work with Amanis. And we are happy to have you all here and to facilitate this important conversation.
And we were going to go in order, and I had alphabetical order wrong because that's pandemic mom, social worker brain for you. But our first panelist, who I will introduce, is Ms. Marissa Fainsod.
Hello, good evening, everybody. My name is Marissa Fainsod. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I graduated from USC, and I currently work at UCLA 3 days a week, part-time, working in the sexual abuse treatment program for kids specifically. Prior to that, I spent over a decade in community mental health, working with school-based programs. I was a school-based coordinator and managed the mental health of the agency I worked at 15 different LA Unified schools. And so while doing that work, I was really given an opportunity to partner with the National Child Traumatic Stress Network in facilitating CBITS. So, in mental health, there's lots of acronyms. So for those of you who are not familiar, CBITS stands for Cognitive Behavioral Intervention for Traumas in the Schools. And it's a manualized treatment modality for children who've been exposed to trauma. And I've been one of their national trainers facilitating CBITS throughout the country for about a decade now. And then about 5 years ago, I opened up a very small private practice in Manhattan Beach while juggling community mental health and consulting, kind of, just like a social worker wearing multiple hats. And I'm really excited tonight to just be able to share some of the things that I've experienced, and I feel very fortunate to have a successful part-time private practice. And so just excited to share what I've learned with you all.
Thank you so much. As an intern, I was part of administering the CBITS group. So this is really enlightening to hear that about you. Thank you so much. Blessy, thank you for being here. We'd love to hear from you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Blessy Giron. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and I'd like to give you a heads up and apologize because I had a power outage in my office. So you might hear a dog in the background, some random cars honking or something, but just a heads up, I had to work out of my garage today. So as I was saying, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I started trying to build a private practice about 5 years ago. I actually have been in community mental health for a little over 10 years, and currently I am within the Norwalk-La Mirada Unified School District. And part of my role there has been to help create a mental health program for the district who's never had social workers on campus. For the last 5 years, I kind of started off seeing clients for a different private practice who contracted with me to see some other clients. And about 2 years into it, I thought that I didn't want to do it anymore. So I stopped for a little bit, and then I decided, hey, you know, this is actually something that I could see me doing myself without, you know, being part of anybody else's practice. So I started trying to figure out how to build my own. And for the amount of time that I've been now seeing clients on my own, I've been focusing on providing services for those who are struggling with depression and anxiety. Currently, I have a very small private practice that has thankfully been successful, and the goal is to continue to grow it. So I'm insurance based, and that's where I get the majority of my referrals from. So that's me, and I hope to tell you a little bit more about it.
Thank you, Blessy. And in pure alphabetical order, we have Miss Nicole Hemans. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amanise. It's nice to be here and connect with all of you. So let's see, I'm a UCLA grad, 2010. I see some of my cohorts out there. Stacy Lowe, shout out. I spent, I guess, similar to others, about 10 years in community mental health. I did a couple years of forensic social work on Skid Row, a couple years of trauma work in West Hollywood, and then I moved into some grief and bereavement work. I started to dip my toes in the private practice waters, I guess, about 2017. Started out just 1 day a week while I was still doing full-time community mental health. And then after my daughter was born, I moved full-time into private practice. So full-time looks different for everyone in this, but for me, that's 3 full days a week. I have about 12 to 14 private practice clients, also primarily insurance-based. And I also balance that with doing some contract work for a couple of different nonprofits. I do supervision for MSWs getting their hours, which has been a really nice way for me to balance the private practice work. I have an office in Tarzana. I did have an office in Tarzana. Now my office is in my extra bedroom. My clients are very diverse in terms of age and mental health presentation. But my niche is grief work, so that's the majority of the clients that I see. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing more about all of you and answering some questions.
Yes, thank you, thank you. I'm trying to contain my enthusiasm, but because there's so much to hear. So thank you, my dear colleague. And now we are on to another colleague from the cohort after hours at UCLA. We have Miss Jolene Uy. Sorry.
That's right. Yes, I graduated in 2011 from UCLA. Good to see all of you Bruins here. And I love Region H because I was ARD, Assistant Regional Director in Region H when I, started to get involved with NASW. I'm currently the Director of Membership for NASW California. I've been with the chapter since 2014. Before that, I was in community mental health. I worked for DMH. I worked for a short time with Amanise at Twin Towers Correctional Facility. I also worked at an outpatient clinic. And then when I had my daughter, I decided to do something different. So at that time, after she was born, I was studying for my licensing exam, got licensed. After that, that's when I started to work for NASW part-time. And let me think here. What came next? I worked for other people in their private practices, and in 2015, I started teaching. I'm also adjunct faculty at Cal State Dominguez Hills. I'm a field liaison for foundation year students there. So I've continued to teach since 2015, taught briefly at UCLA as well. In 2017, I decided that I wanted to create my own practice so that it was more flexible and I could focus on the populations I wanted to. So I specialize in maternal mental health, but also LGBTQ population. I worked with the gay bi trans unit in Men's Central Jail, and I consider myself a part of the community. So yeah, so that's about it, I think.
Yes, thank you. And of course, we're going to hear more because that's not it. There's more to hear. But I'm just really enjoying to see how everybody here, for the record, is connected. We're all connected, whether we're all colleagues, but we all know someone who knows each other, or we all directly know each other. And that's the beauty of how things work in social work and how we continue to network even as we go on. Lastly, we have our newly graduated Dr. Villanueva. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Amanis. Good evening, everyone. I am Dr. Deborah Villanueva, and I am a licensed clinical social worker and a recent graduate with my doctorate degree in social work from USC. It's not UCLA.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So it's such a pleasure to be here with all of you tonight. Where do I start? Okay, well, I am currently the CEO and founder of the Rising Spirits Project. We provide post-incarceration services to urban Native American youth and their families. So that's one thing. And I, currently provide mental health services through my part-time private practice, and it's located in Seal Beach. I actually transitioned about 3 months ago from Long Beach. And I am also currently the Assistant Regional Director for Region I. And, I am all about helping people live their best lives. I really enjoy helping our clients meet their mental health goals. And I truly love supporting fellow therapists, our colleagues, and bringing their full potential. And my focus is on child and adolescent psychotherapy, basically anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And I'm excited to share a little bit more about, my experience. I'm fairly new to private practice. I want to say it's been a year and a month, exactly, actually. I started my part-time private practice last November, and it has evolved to something really special for me. And yeah, so I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And I think just as we kind of went over before, and some of these questions, everybody will have a different answer to, so we can go in the same order that we went through, the alphabetical order that I finally figured out. And for the questions that we might have the same answer to, please, no need to be redundant and say the same thing. You don't have to speak on that. We do have a lot of individual stuff that needs to be heard, so that's what I want to make sure of. So first and foremost, how did you get started? Because we all know it was a little bit of this getting there, but how did you just, when you said, I'm going to do it, what happened? How did that look? So I think the first.
Is that
Oh,
me?
sorry. Yes.
Okay, sorry guys.
I have
Okay. So, and I just want everybody to know I'm bipartisan. I went to USC and I work at UCLA. So I like to play both sides of the fence. One university gives me my money, one gets my money. That's how that goes. So,
social worker.
Yeah. Like I said, I was working in community mental health, and I'm pretty sure along the way we've each all had a supervisor who just was like a guiding light for you. And I had a phenomenal supervisor who was just like, Marissa, there's more besides community mental health. While it is amazing the work that you're doing, to be able to expand your career and your profession, I want you to start thinking about private practice. And one of the things that was amazing was she was looking for a private practice office. And so she really played in a crucial role in helping look for the office. And it was myself and another another licensed social worker and our supervisor. And the three of us all branched off. I had no idea what I was doing at that time. I just kind of was like, okay, if I show up, people will show up, right? But I was very fortunate. I had a psychiatrist that worked at the agency who actually referred a family to me. And that was the one client I had for like the first 4 months. And then I learned about Psychology Today, and calls slowly started to come in. And then that one client referred me to 2 other people. And so for me, what ended up happening was that one family that I was working with, the mother asked me, do you think you could try and get paneled with our insurance? We have no problem paying you out of pocket, but could you just try? And I was like, okay, not really knowing what that entailed. But lo and behold, I did get paneled with one insurance company. And so for me, I just really was managing both things at the same time, working in community mental health and slowly starting out. And at that point, I think right now we're at this really special, one of the perks, if there's any perks or bright sides to COVID, is you don't have to have an office space to be able to start a private practice. So that is one less expense that you potentially have to incur to get your feet on the ground. So when I started out 5 years ago, finding a space and thinking about the location and who was going to be able to come to that location, and parking. If you live in LA, parking is always a big deal. Is it, street sweeping and sweeping. So for us, we found a location in Manhattan Beach, and it was a prime location. And then it was just for me about making connections with other people on the floor of the building that I was in, reaching out to people I already knew and just saying, hey, I have a private practice if you know anybody that's looking for a therapist. And to be honest, in the beginning, I didn't turn anybody away. I was like, oh, you want to see me? Okay, I'll see you. But now that I've been in this over 5 years, I am more selective about who I see. I really enjoy working with children. I really enjoy working with teenagers, and not everybody can say that. And so, but part of the reason I love working with children and teenagers, I love working with parents. Right. And because to be able to help a child, sometimes we have to work with the family. And so I've just really been able to create this practice of people I enjoy working with. And of course, trauma always seems to come back up, because when you're a trauma therapist, it's just kind of like magnetic. It comes to you. And
Hi,
so
everyone. Welcome to my channel, Crochet for Baby.
And so I think, for me, I just really had somebody that was encouraging and supportive and had a little bit more knowledge on how to get up and running. Had I not had that push from that supervisor, I probably wouldn't have ventured out. But I know for me that I was ready. I was getting to a place of burnout and vicarious trauma where I was working, and I really needed something to fill a different need for me. And private practice was that. So.
Thank you. I think burnout may speak to many right now. And I think that, and then you addressed one of the questions that will probably get answered about how it's changed since COVID. So thank you. And next in the order, we have Miss Blessy. How was your experience different?
So in all honesty, full transparency, I started seeing clients as a contractor because I wanted to make some extra money. And, I started making that extra money. I liked it and stuck with it for a couple of years. But the more involved I got in learning about private practice, and the more involved I got in the atmosphere of, business and growing and personal development, and the more I saw about how much possibility there is attached to building your own private practice and being allowed the freedom to sort of grow in whatever areas and whatever projects are interesting to you and what you feel passionate about, that's really what got me to decide that I wanted to build something that was my own. And the push that I received to break away from the other practice that I was working with and really go for creating my own.
Thank you. But can you clarify a little bit when you said you were a contractor, because that could mean, so can you tell me a little bit about that? And for those,
so I actually saw clients for a different private practice. So you're not an employee, but what it is they pay you with a 1099, and you take on however many clients you want. I was in community mental health, and so in community mental health, like many of you know, you're seeing clients, you know, in their homes, out in the community. So when I first started contracting, I actually started with the same type of approach. I would see my individual clients out in the community, in their homes as well, in the same manner that I would my community mental health clients. And so I think it just kind of made me realize that, you know, making that push towards creating a private practice wasn't as intense as I thought I initially thought it was, given the fact that you think of having this building and this office that you go to, but it was that experience that I think really showed me how accessible it actually really is.
Great, thank you. And Nikki, how about you?
Well, I think similar to Blessy, I had some colleagues who had already made the leap into private practice, and I saw the benefits of that. And they were very helpful and supportive and instrumental in just helping me with all the logistics. And there are a lot of logistics, but it can feel a little intimidating, but it's totally doable. So let's see, I think I started out with getting my business license, and then I sublet an office 1 day a week from a colleague that I knew. I did my Psychology Today profile, and then I sat back and I waited for the phone to ring. And, you know, I had one client, and then I had two, and then I had one, then I had two, then I had three, then I had one, then I had three, then I had four. And it definitely slowly built over time. And I think the fact that I was still doing community mental health 4 days a week and just private practice 1 day a week, I think emboldened me a little bit to kind of take that step. I did actually, I paid someone to do my insurance credentialing process because I just could not wrap my brain around that. And I was able, it's a long process. It's not difficult, but it's arduous. I think it took about 3 to maybe 5 or 6 months to get on. I think I'm on 4 or 5 panels, only a few of which I actually use now. But once I was on those panels and I had, you know, a profile in the directory, the phone started ringing. I think if you're at all interested in going the insurance route, it is a very good way to build a practice. I'm trying to think, but in terms of like, you know, intake paperwork and just like procedures and protocols, I had other colleagues who had already kind of ventured into the private practice waters, sort of share their resources and their knowledge with me, which was really helpful. That's why I'm happy to do this for others this evening.
Thank you. And what I'm hearing the theme of, as we kind of started in the beginning on how we established making the panel happen, is networking. Our colleagues, our resources. This is how we do. Thank you. And Miss Jolene, please tell us. I saw you nodding a bunch, so I'm sure there's a lot in common at this point.
Yes.
Please tell us.
So I went to school. I went to grad school to get I wanted to be a therapist. That's what I wanted to do when I went to grad school. And I found myself working for NASW in a more macro capacity. I am a program director for NASW. So what happened? So I found that I was craving, like I said before, I was doing some contract work, you know, seeing some clients for another practice, but I wanted to nourish myself with my own practice. So that's when I decided to open my own practice in Long Beach. And when you talk about networking, funny thing, I was on a panel right before I opened my practice, and another member of the panel was saying how she had an office in Long Beach and she was looking to share her office in Long Beach. So that's how I got my office in Long Beach, and we still share an office in Long Beach. So that's how I got my space. As I work full-time for NASW and I teach, I do have a very small private practice, but like I said, it nourishes me. I love that therapeutic work. I keep about a handful of clients, and yeah, I love being able to provide these services. So yeah, that's kind of how I got started. Like I said, I met someone, I got a space, got my business license. I'm only private pay. I'm not on any panels right now, maybe in the future when I can allot more time to seeing clients. But for now, yeah, it's private pay and a few clients.
Thank you. And when you're ready to do panels, you should talk to Nikki to pay the same person to do all the paperwork.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I will pay someone to do it.
Like taxes. Thank you very much. And Dr. Villanueva, you have a different path to this. So I'm curious to hear how you came through to doing what you do now.
Yeah, so for me, honestly, the decision in transitioning in my career to a macro approach, being obviously, micro, and then, with schooling and what have you, transitioning into a macro approach. Once graduation was coming closer, which was this past May, I did decide since last year to start researching and thinking about how can I still keep connected with my clinical skills. So the logical next steps revolved around opening my own private practice. I did some research. I inquired with colleagues that were already established and took that big next step. I thought to myself, okay, it's only going to be part-time, and it will allow me to continue to be pretty fresh on my skills. And so it's funny because I recall sending a message to Jolene here with us tonight and inquired about maybe possible subleases in the area, and just reaching out to the experts in the field, right? And so finally I found a sublease office that it's really cute and I loved it, and it was here in Long Beach. And as the practice started to grow a little bit more, I wanted to do other things in my practice. So 6 months later into that, I transitioned into my own office in Seal Beach. And so, yeah, that's actually how it happened for me, and so I feel like I have both the best worlds right now, transitioning into the macro work and then still continue to provide services individually, part-time, not a big caseload. And so it's been very manageable and I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that nourishment is happening. And I think that's what a lot of people have said as well. You're nourishing that something else that this seemed to fill the void for. So I think that's something important for us to continue to grow and to stay healthy and to stay vibrant in our profession. So thank you.
Yes.
You all touched on it a little bit, but and I think on this one, we don't have to go down alphabetical order. This is just kind of a more organic conversation at this point until the very end. But how building and maintaining the client base. I'm hearing Psychology Today. I'm hearing word of mouth. Or is there any other tool you use to do that you might want to add to this?
Facebook is a phenomenal resource. There's a therapist group, therapists in private practice, moms in private practice. The other thing that I would just say is I say yes to a lot of things, even if it may not be exactly what I'm interested in, or, because everything is an opportunity for a connection. So last year I was asked to present about to a group of architects. And while you might think that might not apply, the architects were working on designing a school for LA Unified that is safe. And this was in response to in light of school shootings. And so one of the things that I got to do was present on how trauma impacts students. So something so simple as having doors that don't slam, right? And from just saying yes to that opportunity and being able to go and present, I then got other opportunities to different people reaching out to me. Oh, I heard you at that presentation. Whereas if somebody said, oh, do you want to present to architects? I'd be like, I know nothing, or I recently was asked to present to lawyers. So I say yes. And from that, I had somebody who reached out, and not for therapy for themselves, but for somebody else they know. And so there's lots of opportunities to build, to kind of create that. But Amanis and I live in the same area, and we are part of a mom's group, a local mom's group. And while it can be difficult to promote in the area that you live. I get many referrals, if not for moms themselves, but for their children or for their partners or just things like that. So having an opportunity just to share your availability is one of a really important aspect.
So for me, kind of similar to Marissa, but for me, actually, it was more about, I saw it in a different way. I didn't really want to, spend the money on traditional marketing efforts, but, made the decision to actually partner with other established mental health groups and private practices in the area that I was serving. And honestly, that has been the primary referral source for me. The clients come and go, and sometimes, someone's full, or I'll be full, and then, we refer within that little network that we have going on within, the area of that we serve and practice. And also, we share similar expertise, and also, we have diverse areas of expertise as well. So sometimes a client might be coming in for a specific area of expertise, or maybe a specific therapy intervention. So, we actually refer to each other in that way. So it has really worked out really wonderfully. I also advertise on my website, but I feel like for me, this whole, partnering with established mental health groups and private practices in the area has really worked for me. So that's my experience.
I'll jump in there as well. I want to echo Marissa. There are some great Facebook groups out there for referrals. There's also one specifically for like LA, LA therapist offices, if you're looking for spaces to sublet, that's a good resource as well. I think for me, it was really about networking, really letting all of my former colleagues at all the agencies I'd worked at previously know what I was doing, as well as Psychology Today, having a website. I think being on an insurance panel, you're just in the pool. It makes a big difference. The marketing piece was really challenging for me, though. I have to say, I am not someone who, and we don't learn this, I think, in a lot of our graduate programs, like how to build a private practice, how to self-promote. Many of us are not good self-promoters. The idea, just the word marketing kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, because that's just not who I am. And I really struggled with that for a while, but I would just encourage everyone, give it some time. The phone will ring. Former clients will refer other people. Former colleagues will refer people. It does happen, but sometimes it does take a little bit of time.
I mostly just use Psychology Today. I get calls from there, and since I have such a small caseload, that works for me. It's kind of just, I don't know, it's easy. Also, colleagues refer to me as well, and that's how I get my clients.
Similar for me, I don't do a whole lot of marketing, or as much as I would hope I did. Social media for me on a personal level doesn't come easy. So on a business level is even more challenging. But nevertheless, Psychology Today and like Nikki said, being on an insurance panel helps a lot. And of course, like everybody's already said, networking and using your resources is super helpful. Because I also do get a lot of referrals from, people I've worked with, or friends, or family. So it isn't impossible, even if you hate marketing.
Mute. Sorry, I was having problems with my mute button there, but thank you. And I think it's especially enlightening, because as social workers, it's not in our nature to, have our name on a billboard and our face up there, but everybody's kind of telling me how they made it work without having to do that. So that is very helpful. And everybody had a little different approach to it too. I wanted to ask about COVID. One of the things that I'm hearing is, you don't need an office. But, you know, I had another piece of that question. I can't remember right now, but just have things changed for you when COVID? Oh, I know. And with the out of state element, I've had people ask, can you practice out of state? Can you practice out of country? I mean, how does all this look post COVID for you in your practice, if at all different?
So I get a lot of questions about these things working for NASW, and I do a lot of ethical consultations and a lot of consultations for clinicians. And so you may have to have an office. So that's going to depend on your jurisdiction, because you usually have to have a business license to operate a business, right? So you'll need to check with who gives you that business license, you know, what kind of address that they need for you. I know in Long Beach, they did want to see, you know, they wanted the address, they look at the blueprints before they issue the license. So that's kind of, you know, up to the jurisdiction. My practice changed. I am still doing telehealth fully. I moved fully to telehealth. I didn't go into my office for a few months, yet I was still paying my rent on my office, just doing it from home. But now I actually go into the office and do telehealth because I just love being in the office space. Like many of you, I have children, small children, and I just need to be somewhere else to focus and see my clients. In terms of out of state, I did want to address that. I get questions from out of state clinicians all the time, wanting to work with clients in California, and then, you know, clinicians in California who want to expand their practice to clients in other states. So the general rule for that is you need to be licensed in the state where your clients are residing. So that is the general rule. Some states, you may know, have had waivers, like New York State had a waiver for a while, allowing out-of-state clinicians to see their residents. But if you're interested in doing that, check with the state who has control over those consumer laws.
I will say that this is probably the best time to start a private practice, which I know sounds very bizarre, but there are so many people who are looking for support right now. I am not taking new patients, but if I were, I could probably have 40 or 50 clients a week. And a lot of that, again, is coming through insurance, but my phone is ringing like it never has before. I think it's also nice that we're not, although we're certainly limited by the state in which we live in, we're not geographically limited so much right now. I certainly have referred clients to colleagues, you know, in other parts of the city because it's all telehealth. I have not been into my office since March. I finally broke down and like bought a desk and a chair, though, and actually set up a home office, which has actually made a huge difference. I was working out of the corner of my living room for months and months, and I was looking at morning dishes and my daughter's like training potty, and things were getting very, very blurred. So I finally set up my own little space, and I was concerned about how my clients would respond to the telehealth, but for clients that I already had an established relationship with, it's been very smooth. My practice was full pre-COVID, so I have not taken on any new clients during this time. Although I've heard from others that that's okay, and it seems to go pretty smoothly. Like people kind of expect that it's all going to be telehealth right now. But they're just, yeah, I think the lack of geographic restrictions in the city in which we live, as well as just the plethora of people that are needing support right now, it's actually a really good time to start a practice.
I agree. You know, I think I look at how I've adjusted my private practice to COVID in a couple different aspects, because I am a mom, and I'm sure that, you know, I just feel that some of my clients have a little more understanding and knowledge of me than maybe they would if just in the office, because when you have a 4-year-old that needs you to help them, there you have to put your client on pause. So I think there's been that piece, but just similar to like Nikki said, I've had clients that I wouldn't necessarily see because of geography. In LA, sometimes it takes my client an 45 minutes each way to come in, have a session. So they're committing 2.5 to 3 hours to have therapy. And this really frees up some time for them. So I think that that's important. The other thing, like, you know, just people are struggling. I think in the beginning, people thought COVID would be like a month max. And so I actually do private practice 2 days a week. And I had probably about 16 clients, and about half of them just were like, you know what, I'm good, I'm all right, I don't need anything, I'll just touch base with you when the world reopens again. And then 2 months later, I was jammed, and I have a mixture of just continuing clients and then brand new clients. And so with the brand new clients, there is some additional paperwork for telehealth consents that you need. And you would think maybe never meeting somebody in person might impair the relationship or the engagement or the rapport. It absolutely does not. I mean, I work with 4-year-olds on Zoom and it works. Like, do I use a funny accent and pull my kids' toys into the session? Absolutely. But it works. I mean, I literally did a session with a 3-year-old last night on Zoom. These kids are going to be so advanced. But I do think, you know, that people are really struggling, and where people have been able to just kind of manage is the resources and the access and the support that is usually there in a regular day-to-day is just not available. So, and I think there's a removal of stigma for a lot of people as well. So I think for the mental health world, COVID has really shone a light on what we've been doing and increased accessibility. And I think that that's really wonderful. And so for the half of my caseload that were like, I'm good, they all came back. And for clients that I probably hadn't seen in like a year or two, they all came back. And so, but something that's been really important to me is just because I'm working from home, not opening up my schedule completely. So I'd just see people whenever. I kept to my 2 days of private practice rather than just being over accessible as well. This is the time I can offer. If you can't work with it, I'm sorry to hear that. And people make it work. So that's been my experience.
Thank you. Yes, boundary setting. I mean, I think is something that we have to, you had to kind of hone in on in a different way with COVID. I mean, because everything is here. Yes, I think it's really important in the fact that you said they kept coming back and that the need. Is there anybody else that wanted to add to that has something that things changed? I want to make sure we didn't miss anybody there.
I mean, I think, you know, I just want to echo what everybody has said. I think for me, I've seen an increase in traffic as well for the practice. And, you know, right now, I mean, everything, I was kind of concerned at the beginning thinking, oh, wow, you know, people are not going to be very happy about telehealth, but everybody has adapted very well. And all of the services that I'm providing right now, all the sessions have been via telehealth 100%. I just started also going back to my office 2 times a week. And, you know, just when it gets busier here at home, I mean, I have my home office and, you know, usually everybody's not, you know, they're at work or whatever. So it's fine. But a couple of days a week when we have more traffic in at home, then that's when I actually start going over there and still continue to do telehealth. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think COVID has been, you know, I mean, it's horrible, but I'm saying it has been a contributor to, you know, an increase in traffic. And I agree with Nikki that I think it's a great time to actually maybe start venturing into a part-time private practice.
Thank you. Thank you. And on that note, I'm thinking, okay, so if someone leaves this conversation and they want to get started, what's the first thing they Google? Like, what is the first place they go to? The business license? Is that what I'm hearing is the first thing? Okay, I'm seeing the nods, getting the business license, and then putting together your Psychology Today profile. Is that the next step?
Got to have your liability insurance.
Okay. Liability, with NASW.
Yes, they offer it.
All right.
But also somebody else mentioned maybe having a consultation with a CPA or an accountant. I think that that's something I learned in hindsight after my first year in private practice, where I made money and having to pay taxes, so having that conversation, people just struggle sometimes if they should be an individual or an LLC. And so it all depends on what you're looking for, but I just do sole. I'm a sole provider. And but there's lots of conversations on blogs, and you just have to be realistic about what your goal is for your business. And I think the one thing that I could suggest is, as social workers or therapists, we don't always wear a business hat. And so there's a lot of business to being a sole, like having your name be your company. And so for me personally, I invested in participating in like a business boot camp made for therapists. There are several of them on the internet. There's one like abundance therapy, there's business boot camp, there's lots of things. And for me, that was like a one-stop shop to learn about marketing, learn about business, learn about taxes, learn about just more ethical things that come up when you're not covered under an agency or a school. So for me, that was one of the things that I invested in so that I could have that knowledge and be fully aware of some of the risk that comes along with being a business owner.
Yeah, it definitely depends on your needs and your goals for your business. I'm also a sole proprietor, and you can actually be an LLC if you're a therapist in California. You can incorporate as a C Corp or an S Corp, but definitely I recommend talking to a CPA just to know the pros and cons and what will suit you best for your needs.
And I'm guessing there are CPAs that specialize. My husband is in that field, but I've never, and his clients are often therapists. And I mean, you just make an appointment? Like, how does that look? How does that appointment go? Because this is all new to me too. So I want to make sure I understand. I'm sure others are maybe having the same questions.
I mean, I found mine locally, and then I went to them. I was using TurboTax prior to this, but then as taxes get more complex, I realized I need an accountant so that I could get help with write-offs, because this is a business. You can write off your wireless, your internet, your cell phone, the ink for your printer, your notebooks, like all of those things are expenses to use towards this. And so even now during COVID, if you're working from home, a portion of your mortgage or your rent could be an expense. So for me, I just found somebody local who was trusted by other people. And I reached out to them, and I've then since referred several other therapists to this person, and they have all felt that he's very conservative, and for me that worked. But there are people I think that specialize in it.
Wow. Thank you. This is so much good information. Thank you so much. And even like the boot camp, did not know about this business boot camp, but I mean, like some of those licensure packages when we study to get our license. I mean, it's an all, like you said, one-stop shop. Dr. Villanueva, for some reason on your screen, you're popping up. Were you going to mention something else in this or no? Okay.
I was agreeing.
Oh, you're green. Okay. Working off the iPhone clipped onto my laptop. So this is my system here for COVID right now. Thank you. So I think the last question here, I think someone alluded to it. Actually, Marissa did something that you didn't find out until a year into it. But I wanted to ask you two things, and you can kind of take from this and how you want to address your response. What advice do you have for people considering this, which I heard the advice is to start now if you're interested, but I'm sure there's more. And also, is there something that you wish that you knew before that you know now, before going into it? So whoever would like to respond, please.
For me, it's the getting your financial affairs in order. So when I first started off, I was managing it by myself. So I was going based off of questions I had asked my tax person and recommendations that he'd given me, and they weren't bad. You know, I can't say that I had bad experiences or anything like that, but it definitely makes it a lot easier if you have a little bit more of a clear boundary between your practice financial situation versus your own private situation, personal finances. So I would say that for me, it was just knowing a little bit more of that financial structural piece at the beginning to have a smoother transition as I focus on that growth and development of a practice.
I agree with Blessy. For me, also, it would be definitely the financial. And also, I think for me was really making sure I had a clear mission or vision of what I wanted to do. What was the real reason that I wanted to run this practice? Like having that very clear. Who do I wish to serve? Who is going to be my clientele? Also the goals, maybe setting really clear long-term goals and short-term goals so that the person doesn't get, that we don't get, you know, discouraged. So that long goal could be like maybe seeing eventually 15 to 20, you know, clients a week, and maybe within a year or so. And then maybe a short-term goal could be maybe writing a blog or a post once a week on your website. You know, just being clear of those things. For me, also feel like if I could give an advice, which it worked for me, is maybe starting part-time. You know, that way you have another source of income as you ease into, you know, starting your own and building your private practice. I think that was, that helped me, and I see the success in actually transitioning in that way. If there was something that I wish I knew before I started this, it would be preparation planning, and a lot of commitment. Honestly, there's, you know, I never thought that my business skills would come handy, but I think somebody else mentioned that as well. I think that, you know, being in this like business mindset will also be key for a successful practice. And so those are my recommendations.
I would say for me, I think I was very just overwhelmed and intimidated by all the steps. It just felt so mysterious. And the advice I would give is it's not that mysterious. It's not that complicated. Yes, it's a series of steps, but it's very doable. It's very manageable. And there are lots of people who have done it before and are happy to help others in that process. I think one piece of advice I would give is much like you said previously, that, you know, really think about who you want to serve. Think about the clients that you will work best with. And you know, I was a macro student in graduate. I never saw myself being a therapist, much less in private practice. And I think even when I was in community mental health, may have had some, I don't know, some stigma or some stereotype about private practice clinicians. And I think the phrase we throw around is sort of cherry picking clients, yada, yada. It's not about cherry picking your clients. It's about goodness of fit. And I think that we all know that when we have clients or we ourselves have our own therapists and it feels like a good fit, you're going to do the best work. So really think about your ideal client, who you want to serve, who you feel like you work best with, and really target your website, your Psychology Today profile, you know, your 15-minute free consultation calls on the phone, to really find those clients. Those are the folks that are going to stick in therapy and that you're going to have like the most satisfying work with. It may take some time to build that, but as Dr. Villanueva said earlier as well, it's okay. It takes some time to develop that, and that's perfectly fine. And if you're starting out sort of part-time, you kind of have a little bit of a safety net, you know, with your 9 to 5 or your community mental health job. It's a good way to start out.
And
You go ahead, Jillian.
Oh, I just wanted to continue with that thought that, yeah, it's okay. It may take a little time to decide who you want to work with, and it's okay to change courses if you want to. I feel like I've done that a couple times, and it's okay. Be flexible with yourself and go on your journey. Another just thing that I wanted to mention, I think a couple of you have already mentioned, is it can take time to build your practice. It's okay. You might start with a couple phone calls and you're waiting and waiting, but it will come, and just put the work in and people will come. Be patient with yourself.
I think just, sharing similar sentiments as everybody, but I also want to encourage you, don't compare yourself to anybody else online, because each of us come to this with our own skill set. And there are people that are phenomenal. They have an Instagram and a Facebook, and I follow them and they're amazing, but they are not me and I am not them. And so I think it's really important. You can go down that rabbit hole of like, oh my gosh, they have the nicest office, or they have the nicest this, but nobody knows your heart, right? Like every single person is in this field because you care about other human beings. And so with that, also knowing your own worth, right? So I think it's a big mind shift for social work to put a price on our work. And so what I encourage you to do is go on Psychology Today and just look at what other therapists in your area are charging, and find yourself in the same kind of baseline. That feels very weird for a lot of us. It still feels weird. Like I had a client today, they're like, oh, I owe you money. I'm like, oh yeah, you owe me money. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you owe me money. And so I think being real, that having that conversation about money can be really difficult, but it's important to have. And so just know your worth. Like you bring so much to the table in private practice. And the last thing I just really, and I don't know if I need to emphasize this here, but call people back. I can't tell you how many people have called me and they're like, no one's calling me back. I just want help for my child. I just want help for myself. And I've had so many clients because I answered the phone. And I called them back. And even if I can't help them, I say, you know what, let me help you. So I recently had somebody, they're like, I need to use insurance. It's all I can afford. And I said, you know what, who's your insurance? I went on Psychology Today. Within reading the first 3 sentences of somebody's statement, if they're going to be a good fit. All I did was cut and paste 3 websites, and I shot this person an email. And, it takes so much courage to ask for help. And so if we have the means to just answer somebody's question or put them in the right path, what a gift. And so those would be the things that I really kind of took away, is that I don't need to compare myself to anybody else. It's okay to get paid well for what we do, and just answer the phone and call people back.
I definitely want to stress on the discomfort of talking about money. So just sit through that discomfort and remember that it's going to be okay.
Yes. No, there's a couple things I'm jotting down I wanted to make sure we touched on. Well, I think what you were explaining, Marissa, is also just a fundamental way that we should operate. I mean, when someone comes to us, it takes so much courage to ask for help. If we can't help, let's send them somewhere that they can maybe find help. I think this is just good practice and what's going to help us in our profession and in our life. I mean, make connections and help someone make the next connection. I mean, I'm just glad you mentioned that. And the other part that I realized I kind of looked over, but it's kind of a nice transition. I was going to ask about, how do you determine your worth? How do you determine sliding scale, and how do you fit insurance into that? That's a lot right there. And please feel free to chime in wherever. We didn't explicitly talk about how to get on the insurance panel. So if someone wants to infuse that a little bit in there when they're responding, that would be fabulous. But worth and paying for it, how does that go?
So because when you're starting off, that money question does feel a little bit strange and weird and uncomfortable. For me in particular, I looked at what insurances were offering. So in order to get those insurance contracts, you identify where you should be calling for the insurances that you want to panel with. You call and say, hey, I'm looking for information on how to panel with you guys, and then they give you the steps. And then you go through that application process. It's a really long process, like somebody had mentioned. But they send the information out to you when you get a chance to review the contract and identify what it is that they're offering to pay for the different services that you're going to be offering. So I use that to determine what my cash payment fee would be. At the beginning, I will say I struggled significantly with feeling like I was overcharging or, you know, directly just straightforwardly telling someone this is what my fee is. But I just reminded myself of that same sentiment of, you know, the fact that my skills are worth something. And after a little bit, that feeling dies down. And I scaled it up a little bit from what the contract was, but not too much, just because I also believe in having accessible services. And my particular target range was, I just felt comfortable with the number, so.
I can't give advice because I haven't raised my price in 5 years, and I actually need to because I'm low for Manhattan Beach, where I'm located, and it's something I need to do. But I'm a procrastinator, and I don't want to change all my paperwork and my website because my big thing that I struggle with is my website. So I haven't updated any of that, and I don't want to do it, but 2021, I will be doing those things. But I think too, it feels weird to raise maybe your rates during a pandemic a little bit. But for insurance companies, if you are certified in any EBT, evidence-based practices, or any special modalities, those are your bargaining points for insurance. So I do both. I do insurance and private pay, and 1 day a week I do insurance and 1 day I do private pay. And so I also do Give an Hour, which is an agency where I do pro bono work, and it's for any type of fire, natural disaster, trauma, shooting. So I make myself accessible. So for me, that's kind of where that balance is, where I'm being able to do insurance for people who maybe can't afford my regular rate. I have private pay, but I also do some pro bono. I just like to keep it across the board. But I do know that I know people that work for BetterHelp or like different things like that as well. But I think when we go into insurance panels, this is where it's your opportunity to say, hey, I'm trained in all these things. I'm certified in this. The rate that you're offering me is a little bit insulting and not on par with what is in my region. So that's why that looking at psychology today is really important, so that if you're doing insurance panels, you can go back and say, well, actually, that's $30 cheaper than what the norm is in my region.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, for me, honestly, there's pros and cons in, being able to accept insurance, but for me, it just didn't make sense. The insurance decides how much they believe that they're going to, or what rate are they going to pay you, depending on your qualifications and your zip code, like you said. And often they judge, obviously towards the lower amount of the market rate. So, from that, then you're thinking, well, how much is it that you're going to get paid? Just a percentage of that rate that they even decide. So sometimes it's not even worth it, and many of the times they deny the claims too. So you end up with zero also. So I guess there's pros and cons. Just like you said, I mean, I have my regular rate. I am a cash only private practice, but on Wednesdays I do provide services to qualified low-income clients, and I actually cut the rate in half, and so that's been working out. Yeah, I haven't had to actually maybe look into accepting insurances, but I just feel sometimes it's the hassle is just too much for what you're actually, you know, going to be bringing in into your practice. But like I said, that's just my personal experience with this.
I think, as Marissa said, I think everyone's private practice is probably as unique as they are. As a clinician, I will agree with everything that's already been said. Yeah, look at your area, look at similar years of experience, base your rate on that. I do offer for clients that don't have insurance and want to work with me specifically, I will offer a sliding scale. And yeah, I think Dr. Villanueva is absolutely right. I think for some people, insurance doesn't make sense. You know, I probably spend, for the panels that I'm on, I maybe spend, I don't know, a half an hour to an hour of billing each week. I do my own billing. You can also like farm that out. If you have a large practice and it's primarily insurance based, you can pay a service to do your billing for you. That has never made sense for me. I've had relatively good luck, in terms of insurance claims and the ease of that process. But I think it really depends on which panels you're on. And yes, the panel contractual rate will be anywhere from a third to maybe half of what you might be charging for out of pocket. I think for me, the cash clients or full fee clients that I have sort of balances out the insurance clients that I have, as well as the contract work that I do supervising interns. So for me, it kind of like, it all sort of balances out to an average hourly rate that I feel comfortable with. But again, it's very unique for every clinician.
Thank you. Did everybody raise your hand, and I can see if you would like to add to that, and I kind of missed it. No, okay. But not with the raise your hand button, because I think that was just, okay, thank you. So I think, you know, we had a few questions that would kind of give us a general understanding and more than a general, thankfully, on how to, but we have a lot of chat going. And I haven't been able to keep up with it, but Hazel, if you wouldn't mind maybe kind of skimming through, and we can do some of those questions, and we have a little more time to take questions from people if they want to speak and go through that way. So thank you.
Yeah.
This has been wonderful.
I'll go ahead and start with, how did you initially get into private practice as an associate to get that experience? I think this person is wondering if anyone did it as an associate. Is there a certain number of hours that are expected to be completed before you become an ideal candidate?
My understanding is you just have to be supervised by a licensed person. I think if you're going into private practice as an associate, and Jolene may probably know more about, she's shaking her head, so I don't want to give the wrong information.
No,
but,
I do know some, but go ahead, Nikki.
But take it away, Jolene. I think from my experience, I think you could potentially, can you join a group practice if you're being supervised?
Yeah, you can join a group and work under an LCSW, but you can't have your own practice. So see, you know what you're talking about, Nikki.
So you have to work under someone else's license, but
Yes, you do. Yeah, and that person needs to be employed at the private practice full-time in order to supervise you. That is one stipulation.
Thank you, Jolene. I think this may have been answered already, but if anyone has something different to say, what are some common challenges that you encounter in the business end of establishing a private practice during initial phase? I know we talked a little bit about the financial aspects, maybe getting caught up in the paperwork for insurance panels. Anything else?
Just knowing how to market, knowing like how to do it, like how do I build a website. I mean, my website is just skeleton right now. I seriously mostly just use Psychology Today. So marketing is not my strong point. But as I said, I don't really need to because I have such a small practice. But I know that that is something that can be challenging at first. And I know that others have addressed this already, that it's hard to kind of toot your own horn as a social worker sometimes.
I think that Psychology Today piece is huge. as I was looking for my own therapist, you read the bios and you're right. The first 3 sentences, if not, like I'm out. But if I see something that resonates with me, I keep reading. So I think that takes that's important to look at, right? The Psychology Today bio. We answered a couple of other questions, but here's another one. How were you all able to manage and juggle working and starting your private practice, making time to build it? At least for this particular participant, it can feel overwhelming wearing tons of hats and then preparing to add one more. The leap can be very scary. How did you all do it?
I did evenings. I started out with just one night a week, 3 hours, so super slow. And I think what I heard many people talk about is you basically stay on the fence until you take that leap, because your practice is built. So it'll get to a point where it's like, okay, I actually don't need this because I'm making money or because I have enough clients to be able to say goodbye to something else. I come back to, I was at the point where I was ready to leave my community mental health job because I was just fried. And so for me, it was finding something part-time so I could get benefits, and then doing part-time practice, because those were the important things for me. And then just being able to do things with my children. And so working my private practice around the hours that work for my family.
For me, it was learning how to organize my time and finding the tools that worked for me as an individual to organize that time. And then also learning how to be really good about implementing boundaries that felt comfortable to me. I hate turning away clients and saying, no, I can't work with you. But learning how to say no and learning that maybe I've reached my limit or my threshold has been super, super helpful and super important in learning how to balance a private practice, a full-time job, a 2-year-old family. So those were the things that I found to be really important for me.
Thank you. Lots of moms here. It's great to know it's doable. How does the super bill work?
I can speak.
You got it, Nikki?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you take it.
Yeah, so super bill is just like a fancy word. Feel free to jump in there. For a receipt. It needs to have some very specific information on it, like your national provider information number, a tax ID number if you have one of those. So let's say a client calls me and I don't accept their insurance, but they have like a PPO. So there's a possibility for some reimbursement there. So the client will come to see me. I will charge them my full fee. They will pay my full fee, and then I'll give them a super bill, which is just a fancy receipt. They submit that to their insurance company, or I know some clinicians will submit it for their clients, and they will probably get a partial reimbursement. They will get reimbursed the rate that their insurance pays for whatever service code you provided. So if you did like a 90837, that's a 60-minute individual therapy session. Let's say, my full fee is $150 and they reimburse at $80. The client will get $80 back. Please, anybody else feel free to add into that though.
I just had one that like literally I was throwing out, but you have to have a diagnosis. So this is an important conversation. So there are some people that do not want any type of mental health diagnosis in any of their charts. So some people will forego this. Guess what? Right now, everybody gets adjustment disorder because of COVID. So it's like Oprah, she just hands them out. And not in it, but I mean, show me somebody that hasn't had a disruption in their life because of COVID. But I let them know that I just put their name on the top. I put the dates of service, and it's up to them to follow through with their insurance. I also, if they are not in network with me and they want to get reimbursed, I actually have 4 questions that I give them prior that they can ask their insurance. What are my out-of-network benefits? Is there a deductible I have to reach? Can I use an out-of-network provider? And so I give them these questions and I let them know that their insurance is more likely to answer to them than to me. So I encourage them to call. And this is just like adulting, you know, but I give it to them and I say, I can't guarantee you'll be reimbursed, but here's what that could look like. And the other thing I think is really important, that they send the check to the client and not us, because we've already been paid. And just recently this happened. I had a client, they checked send to provider. So I got the check and then I tried to mail the check to the client and then they were like, oh, this isn't working. Can you deposit it and then write me a check? Way more work than I need to do. And I'm happy to do it, but this is part of the reason a lot of people don't do those things. So.
Thank you. Jolene, were you going to add something?
I was just going to mention the diagnosis thing as well. And I don't diagnose in my practice because I'm just private pay and I really have no need to do that unless it's something, you know, therapeutic for the client and we work on that together. But whenever I have to do a super bill, I'm like, oh, I don't want to diagnose. I don't like it.
I did see that people were asking about charting. If you are doing insurance, a lot of people just streamline their practice and they either use Simple Practice or Therapy Notes or Theranest. There's lots of different options of electronic health records, but I do think I sometimes use a book. You know, I'm old school that way. And again, everybody has what works for them. But you do have to keep everything for 7 years. So do you really want 7 years of documentation and paper in your computer or in your house, or would you rather have it housed in an electronic platform?
And is it different for insurance versus cash pay? The documentation? You went on mute.
Sorry. I've been audited once in my 5 years, and it wasn't I was being audited. My client was actually being audited because they wanted to raise their insurance and they wanted to know if they were at risk. And so having the documentation, if you have insurance, you always have some type of documentation. Just think about if you went to the doctor and your doctor didn't put anything in a chart, it would not feel so good. So I always take notes, but the notes vary based on insurance and private practice as well. But I do always document how they present, whatever major issues are happening and what some minor things that were covered. But you do need to be prepared if you take insurance that they could request records at any time. So that was it.
Thank you. This is a good question. What is the average income yearly when being full-time private practice? It could be a range, but any thoughts? Nikki, I think you accidentally muted yourself.
Oh, thank you. It's so unique, I think, to everyone's practice. Like, how many clients do you want to see? Are you accept? What is your hourly rate? How many weeks of vacation do you want to give yourself? I mean, from what I see from other colleagues, I mean, I think the sky is sort of the limit. How much do you want to work? How many clients do you want to see? What do you want to charge? I mean, I think there's a lot of earning potential there. But I would imagine I'm sure every single person on this panel probably has a very different response to that, because everybody's practice looks so different. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I'll just add a little bit to what I've seen because I've had some colleagues get into it. I mean, I think again, your hourly and who you want to serve is also very important. Your clientele. Are you going to be serving people who can't afford therapy, or are you going to be serving people who just have a therapist for life and money is not an object? I mean, I've seen people charge 250, 300, 350 an hour. And some people say, that's not what I went to social work school for. I don't feel right doing that. But it's all different, and you can justify, everybody needs help. You know, money is no object, money is an object. It just really varies. Are you going to be speaking? Are you going to be offering extra services, extra trainings? I mean, I think, like you said, the sky is the limit, but it's going to be a very unique answer, or a very unique picture, depending on what you want to offer, which has been mentioned several times, saying determining what that is, which could take time. That can change as you go along, and you may want a little bit of both to kind of make it work. So yeah.
And I see Marissa put in the chat someone asked the average hourly rate in LA, and she said 125 to 200. So let's say you have, multiply that by the number of clients you have, whether you're going to take sliding scale fees, take into account cancellations. It's tough, but that could be a good place to start. And actually, someone raised their hand. So apparently that function works. So I think Susan Martinez, you raised your hand. So I think you want to ask a question.
Yes, I did. Thank you, panel. I'm learning a lot. So I just want to ask, how many of you plan on staying online? I don't know how the transition was for you. Maybe there was an adjustment disorder happening there too. And how many of you are planning to go back because you just missed the office once COVID is over? I'm just curious about that.
I want to do a combo. I think I want to do a combo. I have really enjoyed doing the telehealth. I was a little resistant to do it before. I don't know if I'm just old or what, but I really enjoy being able to have these services available to people across the state. Like I think Marissa mentioned it, like traffic. How is someone going to get to Long Beach from the Valley to see me? So I want to keep that option open, but I also like seeing clients in person. I like that interaction. So I know for me, I'm going to do a combo.
Same goes for me. Same thing. I think I see the benefits of, telehealth. It, just gives you so much more, possibilities to be able to serve our clients in the best way possible. And I definitely want to, also provide services, face to face, and be able to run my groups and what have you also in person. So, yeah, I mean, I was nervous at the beginning about telehealth, and now I just think it's one more added feature to be able to better serve our clients. So I am definitely going to take advantage of that.
Same for me. I'm actually really enjoying it. I think it's made it so much more accessible to so many different people, and I love that. But I definitely need to keep in office, because there are situations where you're gonna need to maybe have more privacy, or personally for organizational purposes. I mean, I have, like I said, a 2-year-old, and even as I was about to answer this question, the dog started barking in the background, and I hesitated for a moment. So I think that for me, having that space where I can go and work is really important.
I'm the same. I'm going to keep both, but I work with little ones, and there's nothing the same as sitting on the floor with a kiddo. And so I've already done a couple very safely porch sessions locally, and I do have 1 or 2 clients I go and do a walk with. But, HIPAA, that makes it a little bit difficult. And it, so I'm very mindful, but I miss seeing people. I miss seeing people face to face, but I probably would do like a 75-25 percentage. 70, once it's safe, 75% in person, 25% telehealth.
Yeah, agreed. I can't add much more to that, but I think I have a handful of clients who've actually really benefited and thrived from the telehealth platform, but I work very relationally, and I have found, honestly, the telehealth to be very draining in a way that I do not find in-person sessions to be. There's the kind of that lack of, I don't know, for lack of like an energetic sort of exchange there. yeah, when it feels safe and comfortable for all, I'll be very happy to be back in my office and seeing clients in person. But if I have folks that prefer to stay with this platform, I'm happy to continue to provide that.
Thank you. And being mindful of time, I know we didn't get to all questions, but Nikki, there is one direct question for you, just if you would mind, if you're open to sharing the contact you paid for your insurance credential process, whether you want to share your email or whatever may be best. Other than that, Amanise, I know we have a few more, but I know we're out of time, so you can wrap it up.
This has been incredible. I have been very curious myself. I mean, I think it's just very important for us to understand this world, which is no longer mysterious for me, but to understand this world as a professional in the field, and also because as another resource for all of our clients. People need help, and to know that this is working out so well for so many, this is just a beautiful resource to have. And having you all here on this panel today, I can't thank you enough. But this is just a gift to be in this position, to know that, you know, a decade ago or so ago, we were in school together, some of us, and then through friends, and here we are now. And this is the I don't know, it's just, to be in the spirit of the season, it's a gift that keeps giving. So here we are. I'm just very grateful for all of your time and everybody that came in today to listen. I hope you were able to get your questions answered. And if you didn't, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm in contact with these people, as I mentioned. So perhaps in my thank you to them, I'll put a couple questions in there if you want to put those in, and I'll see if we can get some answers. But I thank you very much, everybody. Hazel, is there anything else you wanted to add, or anybody else have anything else you want to add in the last 2 minutes we have left?
I'm good. I'm appreciative of the panelists. It's late for them being here. That was a lot of information, and it was good info. So you should have Amanise's email to get, because you got this link. It was through Amanise's email. So feel free to reach out to us for any other additional resources. We post in Facebook often when we have different events coming up. So check those out. And I think that's it for me.
Yes. So thank you, everybody. I don't know how the Zoom goodbyes, how this stuff goes, but just one more shout out. If you do have any other questions, Hazel, can we keep tabs of them in the chat box if we have any other questions? Or, you know, if you wanted to email me, which was regionh@NASW-CA.org. You can always email me there. And again, we network, we are connected, and we can always try to help each other out if there are more questions left. So thank you again.
Hi, Dr. LaShawn.
Bye,
Nice to see your
everybody.
beautiful face.
I have my baby in my lap.
Oh, let me see.
We saw baby. We saw precious baby.
I didn't see. Let me see.